All right, hey, everybody. Let's see. We got everything up and running here. Get this going. Just one more second, and then we'll turn. There we go. All right. Hey, everybody. TG here. It is April 27th. I hope everybody's having a good time. The markets have been crazy as usual, but I think we've got a pretty good feel for what is happening. And so we're going to be running through and talking about that. As always, since we're over in, we got YouTube and Facebook and like I think we got Twitter, and then we have the free trading room. So we got a lot of channels out there. If anybody is not familiar with me or who I am, you can come over here to profitpilot.com, check out more information, get services, all that kind of stuff. And if you like the way that I trade and the way I look at the markets, then come on over here and you can join the trading room and all of that. So let's dive into this. Now, some of my screens got moved around. So if I have to pick a couple of them before I actually get going, just that's what's going on here. So let's see. First off, we've had what do we have? We had Google and we had Microsoft earnings just come out, and those were going to be some big deals. Now, I don't necessarily know what the results were, or what they were projecting, or future guidance and stuff like that. But what I can tell you is what the charts did. So we'll go walk through that, and then tomorrow after the close, we have Apple and then Amazon. So, big names coming out there, and I think a lot of people have been really wondering what's going on. One thing that I've been kind of saying is I think at this point the market is going to have a hard time getting lower. So that is going to be basically my contention of where I think things are going and how this is going to pan out. But after that, I think we need to be careful. So I'm looking for a little bit of a bounce. I know things look super bearish, but I have a feeling that the bearish side right now is a little too overpopulated. And so I would be watching for some sort of bounce to be happening here, mostly because, a couple reasons. Basically, we have price coming into this big old area on the daily chart. And also we have price very, very oversold on the daily chart, which kind of looks like that. Now, I don't know how big the bounce is going to be. That's always the unknown. But I do think that price does not want to get much lower from here, despite all the bad news and bad, whatever. I don't know how the earnings went, so good or bad, since Microsoft up and Google down, that kind of thing. All right, so then that's what I'm looking at. Then we kind of just look at the UVXY and looking at this, and it's been pushing up, but I think it too is going to start running out of steam. This is a kind of a maneuver that I typically see where it's just gone up too far. And if we look at the daily chart, I was noticing that it just kissed the daily third ATR. So pretty interesting. The UVXY can definitely blow past that, but I don't think it's going to be doing it on this go round. I think that, again, we're looking for a pullback on the UVXY, a bounce on the market itself, and then we get ready to go the other direction in a big way. So I'm kind of looking at this gap in through here on the hourly chart. Want to see if that thing can get filled at some point. All right, now I did see a couple questions. Simon, let's look at XLE. I think it's already finished the second test of the daily 50. I would give this a little bit more time because nothing is quite confirmed yet. So I know what you're saying. You're kind of looking at this as maybe a trampoline move. It's possible, but I think we're going to need more time. Possibly holding the 15-minute 50, but that's kind of a very, very small thing for us to try and hang our hat on as far as if this is going to work out. I would really kind of wait to get the hourly chart a little bit more in line. Yesterday we were talking, and CMC was a good example. Let me see if I can open this up. There we go. CMC was a good example of what I'm trying to say about this hourly chart. So you see how maybe your XME example could be like right here, and I don't know, could be like right there. And what'd you do? If you waited long enough, you really didn't miss out on anything. That's kind of my first thing that I want to tell you is we don't need to be super early. You can wait and still catch a good move. And you can look here, CMC. If you waited, you could still catch a pretty good move. In fact, there were here and then a dip and here that were plenty of opportunities. There was here, and then it turned out to be and that one's a tough one. That's a tough one to figure out right there. But it did give you even more of an opportunity right there to then go long before it moved up again. So as I said, I think for XME, give it some more time. You don't need to jump into it too quickly. and I'd be probably erring on the safer side for stuff like that. And then Darth, let's see. If you're looking at Boeing, I'm not sure I'd be looking at this at all. Actually, I didn't know it had earnings today. So what do you buying the moat gap fill? Okay, so first of all, I just don't think I'd want to buy anything on this. This had earnings. It obviously went down. I don't think I want to play with that. So that's kind of what I would say. We have been seeing a lot of things going down. We've been seeing a lot of earnings destruction, as Danielle puts it, and I just don't think I'd touch this. Go look at Facebook, go look at Netflix, go look at stocks that have gone down on earnings, and maybe eventually they bounce, but that's kind of the counter trend trade to try and go after. What if it doesn't bounce? What if it just kind of goes sideways for a little bit and then screws you up before it actually bounces? Like kind of throws your mental game off. What if you think it's low, but it goes lower before it bounces? That anything like that. Uh, I I just wouldn't be touching this. I didn't want to be touching the airlines. I didn't really want to be messing with anything like this. None of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I just don't see any opportunities in through there. Yeah, and Darth, I mean, as far as the 15-minute, I just nope. I would not be looking long on something like this. I just wouldn't do it. So I don't see anything I really want. Yeah, and then let's see, uraniums. We kind of covered this yesterday. I'd like to think that if we look at the higher time frame charts, which there we go. If we look at this, I'd like to think that these things are still generally in an uptrend. Now, hopefully this is not a double top. So we'll have to give it more time to figure that out. But the Moxie indicator is still above 0 for now. It's this was a trampoline move, but it's back on the weekly 50, and it is still above the monthly 10. So we're going to have to give this a little bit more time to really know what's going on with it. And the other thing that I'd like to lean on is that there is a ton of volume that has been coming into the uraniums. So, maybe we're going to have to handle some chop, and maybe these things aren't really going to appreciate right now or right away. But that's kind of what I'm thinking is I'm still long on our uranium plays, and for now they look like they're pullbacks in these longer term trends. Imran, good to see you. It's been a while. Hope you're doing well. All right, so where do we see support for Tesla? I guess we have earnings out of the way, and my understanding is Tesla got kind of crunched yesterday for two reasons. One, Twitter. So you have to think about the mechanisms that happen underneath the surface. When one company buys out the other company, the company that gets bought out usually goes up because that company is bought out at a premium. The company that bought the other company tends to go down because now that company acquired a liability, or at least had to pay for that other company. And so you'll see the bought company go up and the buying company go down. And I think that that might be some of what's at play here with Tesla, since it happened pretty much at the news. But from a technical standpoint, because 3 years later, you might be looking at charts like this, and you may not know that that was the news of the day was Twitter right here. I mean, really, you're going to look back at a chart and you know exactly what news article happened on that day? Unlikely. And so, from a technical standpoint, I first would be saying that this was an inverse trampoline move on the hourly chart. So, for those of you who don't know the Moxie indicator and how I teach about all this kind of stuff, when price is over the 50, but the Moxie indicator is below 0, and remember the Moxie indicator is a momentum energy based indicator. If it's below 0, it means it's negative. And what that means is price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below 0. And I actually have some, I think I got it in through here. Let me just post this real quick. This is actually a screenshot from a conversation that I was having with another trader friend of mine. I'm on the right, he's on the left. And I was saying, looking at Tesla chart, even if they gap up, and we're talking about earnings because everyone was waiting to see Tesla earnings. I said, even if they gap up, the chart is not ready to sustain it. And yeah, he was agreeing with me, but that's what I was saying is that right here, even if they gap it up on earnings, the chart is just not going to do it. And that is the power and the benefit of the Moxie indicator, because I could look at this and say it's not going to go anyplace. Even if it does temporarily, the big picture is it's not sustainable. And it was just a giant gap up, and it came right back down to support at the time. And then what we could see is price got underneath the hourly 50 and then flagged into the underside of a downtrending hourly 50 with the Moxie indicator below 0, and plunk, there it goes. The other thing I could be looking at on a daily perspective is what the heck was going on with the daily price. Look at that gap. What is, if you look at it, and this is why I use multiple time frames. This is pretty important here. If you look at the daily chart, you're like, why is this thing just floating in midair? Here's the daily 50. What is this thing doing and why is it just floating there? Well, if you look at the hourly chart, it then makes a little bit more sense. You're like, oh, it was basically on the hourly 200. And that was, I think, the temporary support until it got rejected by the underside of the hourly 50. So you should look at something like that on the daily chart and be like, why is this thing floating in the middle of nowhere? And because it's floating, it's probably going to go down at some point, at least to the daily 50. That could go further, sure. And that's what it did. It went straight down. As it turns out, it hit that lower 30 ATR and it's found some temporary support. It's got a little bit oversold here on the hourly chart, all that kind of stuff. And then if we do zoom out a little bit, and maybe we just use our cursor and you say, well, what else do we see? Why is this thing sitting here? Well, look, there's a level, there's a level, there's a big level, and where is price? It's right there. So going back to your question, Big Bull, where do I see support for Tesla? Well, you're pretty much looking at it, but I think it's going to be temporary. Sure, I think there's probably going to be a bounce because I think the market's going to bounce, but I don't think Tesla is impervious to what's coming with the market. I think the market is going to go lower. I think we're seeing that across the board that things are going lower. And yeah, I'd be watching for a bounce and then careful with Tesla because it could go down. Now, I think in my Moxie room, somebody was talking about wanting to short Tesla. And the only caution I put out there was looking at, say, Build-A-Bear. And let me see if I can get the right daily. Okay, there we go. The only thing I could say is I was trying to short Build-A-Bear a while ago, and it worked out. Took some time, but we got our money out of it, and with a gain. And my only concern is Build-A-Bear is just not going down. Now, maybe eventually it will go down, but it is just chopping like crazy and not going down. And I'm just thinking, okay, if Build-A-Bear can stay up, and one of the subscribers, one of our traders, were saying, well, it's because nobody wants to short cute teddy bears and hurt kids' feelings. I was like, okay, you maybe have a point there. So Tesla, my only concern is, what is the likelihood of Tesla really moving down? It might chop around, it might go down a bit, but I don't know how much it's actually going to go down on a larger time frame. I could be totally wrong. We could eventually see Tesla down at $600. Who knows? But I don't know how well it's going to go down there. I don't know how quickly it's going to go down there. So if you are going to be trading Tesla, I'd really probably be looking at it on shorter time frame charts and being nimble with it because I don't think it's going to go down without a fight. Unlike, if I just say Carvana, Carvana went straight down. So that one was easy. We didn't take it because it was happening before we really switched to go bearish. But then I look at something like DKS, and you can see that DKS is going down. It's been annoying too, but it's been going down, and I think it's going to keep going down. So, or you get to SGMS. I think it's going to go down. It's generally been going that direction. I think this is a bear flag. I mean, look at this. Look how long this has been staying here. What's it probably going to do? It's probably going to keep going lower. So if anybody's interested in trading this stuff, I'm sure you could trade it to the downside. But what might be more lucrative, because I know I got a lot of option traders in my room, what might be more lucrative is selling calls up here because you can see what's it doing. It's basically hovering on the weekly 8. And yes, there are some pops, but it's essentially going nowhere. It's not going up. So I think that the play you could have is that you just make money by having price not go up. And then eventually this thing will fall to the downside, but who knows how long and when, because look how long that thing has just been going sideways. And if you look at the weekly chart, I mean, does this not look super obvious about what's probably going to happen? Price has been moving down so much, it's actually curved the monthly 10 into a downtrend. So I bet you anything that SGMS is going to go down. It's really just a question of how and when, which has been a little bit challenging. We made some money off this, or I think we actually got a break even on this one, mostly because we played it, it bounced, and then it just went sideways for weeks, as you can see. Charles, well, thoughts on ET? ET probably needs to phone home. So other than that, what is this thing? Energy transfer. Let's see, look at the weekly, daily. Well, energy, okay, keep in mind that the entire market is very, very weak. And things may not be able to go up when the market goes down in such a big way. That's possible. It seems okay, but I think you should be prepared for not too much excitement to the upside. I think that you can see here it did hit the weekly third ATR. It seems to kind of be dealing with that weekly 200. It is generally in an uptrend, but it could be slowing down. It could be getting into some chop before you really see something next. So you got to really just be careful and think about, how are my positions if the market goes down? And if we look at, say, something like USO, now USO seems to be holding up, but it's also been going nowhere. And you can see it's generally been kind of doing a little bit of something like this on the daily chart, a little bit of pennant. It was very, very overbought for a while, and right now it's just been going sideways for a very long time. That might be something similar that you see from ET as far as the energy sector. So maybe it doesn't go maybe it doesn't go down too far, but I'm not sure how much it's going to go up. So that's kind of my thought. Yeah, Coop, good morning. Let's see, Walmart. Yeah, and guys, let me know if you're long or short on any particular thing, since this market is very bifurcated. We are basically looking at longs and shorts. Let's see. I don't know much about options, so let's see. 167 call for May 20th. Personally, I kind of think that the market's going to go down soon. Yes, there might be a bounce, but I'm also looking at Walmart, and it seems a little bit overbought. They got pretty close to the third ATR. You can see that there was a gap here on the between price and the weekly 8. And here it got up to the weekly, or sorry, the daily third ATR as well. And then you can see here, price went up, Mox indicator went down. That's on top of this major negative divergence. And now you're getting a Moxie price trigger to the downside. What could happen is maybe price bounces off of the daily 21 and you get another move up like that. But I don't know if it's really going to be making new highs, especially if I know I know it's been a strong name in a weak market, but if the market is really going to roll over, it can take names like this down too. And I look at this and I think it's pretty extended. It's still not touching the weekly 8 EMA. So it's pretty overbought. It's kind of unsupported. And there's a pretty big gap between price and the daily 50. So I think that the best thing I could be hoping for is a bounce off the 21, but I don't know how far it's going to go before maybe rolling back over. So I think that the risk is to the downside, is my bottom line on that one. All right, so yeah, we needed to talk about Microsoft and Google and stuff like that. So Microsoft up on earnings, okay. My thing was, I was talking to the Moxie subscribers yesterday, and I said, look, first of all, I don't trade earnings. I've done it occasionally just because I think the trend was working. I don't think it's going to do anything, but I would not specifically trade going into earnings for an earnings trade. It's just not my style. And what I've been saying is I think some of these names are going to have a hard time getting lower. Doesn't mean they can't, but has a hard time. And I look at this and you see there's a level right there on the daily chart. It was at the third ATR, all this kind of stuff. And I just said, I wouldn't be surprised to see this kind of bounce. I think the market's going to bounce. I think Microsoft could bounce, but I'm not going to trade that. So if you're asking like, what's going on here, basically it's noise. It's basically chop, but I think it's bouncing up before it's probably going to go lower. So if you look here on the weekly chart, there is a double bottom, but remember, a double bottom only works when it works. Otherwise, it's a resting place until price goes lower. And if you look at the daily chart, what direction is the daily 50 going? It's in a downtrend. And if you look at the daily 200, it's going up and then it's starting to turn. And if you look at the hourly 200, it's pretty much in a downtrend. It had a little bump, but it's still flat and could easily go down. And what direction is the hourly 50? In a downtrend. How about the hourly chart? We have price over the hourly 50, but the Moxie indicator below 0. That's an inverse trampoline move. Price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below 0. Now, sure, it can keep going higher for now, but I think that the major trend is going to be to the downside, and I think all you're going to get right now is basically a reversion to the mean or some sort of bounce. If you look at this, the 8 is still below the 21. Everything I think I've said here says negative. So sure, there can be bounces, but I think those bounces will eventually resolve to the downside, and I do think that's the direction of the market overall, but outside of the bounce. All right, let's see. Kind of keep scrolling down here. Yeah, gold. I think gold will eventually go higher. If we look at this, if we look here on the monthly and the weekly timeframes, they were a little overbought. Now, I thought they were going to go further up before they pulled back, so a little surprise on that. But if we look here at previously, what are we looking at? Basically a pullback or a flag into the monthly 10 SMA, and I think that is going to be what eventually sets gold up. So for now, you're going to have to just hang on and wait and watch for it to kind of not do much, maybe kind of drift down a little bit, but give it a few weeks. And I do think it will eventually turn back up. And I think that's what we're looking at. No, these dots, these are the third ATRs. So I call them third ATRs. It's a little bit of a misnomer, but it's basically the Keltner channels. It's the third factor Keltner channels. Let's see. What happens if Putin destroyed crypto data center and stock market data center? Well, that's a big question. Let's hope that doesn't happen first off. Let's also hope that he doesn't use any nukes, because the world as we know it is going to change if a nuclear bomb goes off. My thought, CM, is that the stock market data center and crypto data centers it's the internet, so I kind of feel like they're redundant. Maybe somebody could speak to this a little bit better, but I kind of thought that that was the purpose of the internet, is that there is no central location. And if these companies were smart, they would not only have their information backed up at their local place, they'd have information backed up on other servers located in other parts of the country or the world. So go have Putin try and blow something up, and it's going to be still, backed up someplace else. Now, maybe if there's a virus, that's a different something. But again, I think any computer system is, has the potential for a computer virus. And I think that now we're talking about cyber warfare, which I hope that our government and companies are doing all that they can to protect us against cyber warfare. But that is going to be probably it's already been basically a new normal for our world as the internet and computers and technology has existed. So we already know that cyber warfare is the thing. All right, dollar strength thoughts. It's strong. Don't know what else to say about that. I don't really trade the dollar. I look at it. I don't know what to do much about it. That's all I can kind of say is, yeah, it's been going up. I would say it's extended, but I don't really follow the dollar too much. And I don't know what kind of rules it follows, because you can see back here, it went way outside the monthly third ATR. But then you can see here, it hit the third ATR. And now here we are pushing past the third ATR. So yeah, I don't know. There are bigger things happening with that. It's not really my cup of tea. And it's obviously super strong. Now, maybe it's getting overextended. Typically, if this were a normal stock, I'd be looking at this and saying, it's due for a pullback. Mostly because if you look at that, it is just super, super sky high, and it's just launched itself. If this were a normal stock, a pullback would be coming pretty soon. So that's all I can say about that. Let's see, Diane, let's see, ADM. Oh yeah, this one. I think that's, yeah, oil related or ethanol, something like that, right? Same thing. So this is what I was talking about dollar. If you look at this as a normal stock, I mean, look at this thing. It's way, 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 way up there on the weekly chart. It's outside of the third ATR. It pretty much, if you look here closely, you can actually see the moment. There's your doji right there. Nice doji. As it was very extended right there, and it hit the third ATR on the daily chart. Here's where you go on the hourly chart. Look at this. You had price move up like that. Notice how dead the Moxie indicator was on the hourly chart. So that's really pretty handy about the Moxie indicator. It can really help guide you for something like that. So if you can't notice something like that by adding all of these things in, very extended on the weekly chart, hitting the third ATR on the daily chart, and then you see price up and then Moxie indicator just die, that is your 1, 2, 3 combination to tell you, like, hey, this thing is pretty far up there, and don't be surprised to see a pullback. Looks to me like this is probably going to take more time to either flag or go down. I would not be long this name. I think it is done. I think it's very, very extended. It's had a great run, and I don't know how much further it's going to go. In fact, I think this is probably the process of it stopping going up, going sideways, or going down. Because I'm looking at this and I see price running right up into the underside of a downtrending hourly 50 with the Moxie indicator significantly below 0. I would imagine this is done going up for now. Yeah, Michael, long GDX, so am I. And so my thought on gold GDX is we're just going to hang on to it for a while because I do think long term it's going to keep going higher. And I think that this dip eventually will be viable. So I'm just going to be hanging on to those for a little while. It's fortunately that's the benefit of having stock instead of options that I don't have to deal with theta. Okay, ADM is agriculture. Okay, either way. So my point still stands for everything that I said about the chart, because if you talk about agriculture, then MOS, these things got way overextended and they're pulling back. And I talked about this in the Moxie group yesterday. IPI, same thing, super overextended, way too far, pulling back. And CF, I was telling the Moxie subscribers yesterday that CF gave me the clearest signal of the bunch. And you can see right here, here is price over the hourly 50. The Moxie indicator was below 0. That's an inverse trampoline move. So I was looking at that and I was like, I don't want to go long this. I don't know what to do about this. Like, I don't see an opportunity. First of all, look at where price is on the weekly chart. It's way off the 8. It's outside of the third ATR. And it feels to me like if I'm going to try and go long at any point like this, it's trying to go long in the 11th inning. Okay, it's just not going to work out very well. And you can see here that also when I saw this inverse trampoline move on the hourly, I said, yeah, that seems too risky to go long. So ADM, same situation. I don't care what industry. It looks just like these names. It's too high, and I would not be long on ADM. So Arison, let's see. Please, what do you think about trading with indicators and trading naked price chart? I'm guessing that's what you're saying. Well, you see what I use for indicators. So I think you need indicators because just trading price can be a little tough, clearly, because the Moxie indicator here was giving me a heads up that I should be careful about this. But if you did not have the indicator, then you might be surprised when price suddenly starts to reverse and break apart. And then naked price chart, I think that maybe that's what you're saying is just price. I need indicators. That's why we have indicators. As long as you find one that works for you and that you understand and works well for whatever you're trading, you need indicators. Now, you don't need 20 of them. You can see I primarily only use one, but I got 2 more on here, but I really only use one. Yeah, Tommy boy, exact. Most modern companies have offsite backups. Totally. Joanna, we covered Target yesterday. I do think it is going to be a short. Now, watch for a bounce, but I do think it's going to be a short. We've got the daily 50, 250 maneuver going on, and I do think price is basically running into the underside of the weekly 50. So look for a bounce, look for a good opportunity, but I do think Target is eventually going to be a short. Let's see, Joe T. 5th cup of coffee. No, coffee actually, it's a little too much for me. If anything, I drink tea. So let's see, waste management. Okay. Well, it just had earnings, so up on earnings. Well, it did a bit of a 50, 200, 50 maneuver right there, and it did hold the weekly 50. For now, waste management looks like it's doing okay. It looks like maybe it's a defensive stock. Waste management. Everyone's got to take their garbage out, right? I don't know. Yeah, it looks okay. I would let it settle in. I would not be very interested in buying it right here after earnings. I would like to, because you can see there's a bit of a gap here between price and the daily moving averages. So I'd give it a little bit of time to see if it can actually hold some moving averages, maybe the daily 21, maybe the hourly 50, something like that. So I'd probably let it settle for a little bit, unless you're going to trade it near term. And in that case, you'd probably want to follow the 15-minute time frame and see if this move can push for a day, 2 or 3. But for a longer term trade, I would kind of look for some sort of pullback into support. Oh, time flies. It's already 9 o'clock. All right. Well, then I'm going to get going there, guys. For those in the Moxie group, I can chat to you in the in the chat room. And other than that, you guys enjoy out there. If for those in the free training room and all that, remember, if you have any questions about who I am and where to find me, come over here to profitpilot.com. And as I said, if you like the way that I look at the markets, that's where you can sign up and find more information. All right. Thanks again, guys. You be careful out there. It's a tricky market, and we'll see you soon.